Good evening and welcome to the SEMLab Careers in Engineering and Manufacturing broadcast. This session will last around 45 to 60 minutes and will include a short presentation followed by a panel discussion and student Q&A. This session will help you learn more about the variety of different careers available in the manufacturing and engineering sectors. Questions for today's speakers can be submitted via the Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen, and this will be open throughout the session. I'm delighted to welcome our first speaker, Paul Thompson. Paul is Education and Skills Manager with SEMLab and will be kickstarting our session with a short presentation. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Carly, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out to join us this evening. I've got a particular passion about this. My background's engineering as well, although I now work for this organisation called the South East Midlands Local Enterprise Partnership, and our role is economic development within a larger geographic area, and that includes Bedfordshire, Luton, Milton Keynes and Northamptonshire. It's quite a large area, about a population of 1.7 million, and we actually have about 886,000 people in employment. And we have roughly about 160,000 job postings, job vacancies per year. So there's quite a lot to have a go at, so there's always opportunity out there. Now, despite COVID-19 and the impact that that's had, up until the latest figures that we've got, which are up until September of last year, employment was still going up in the area. And we actually have one of the highest employment rates in the country. And the real good news is it's spread right across the patch. So in every single area, Bedford, right the way through Northamptonshire, Milton Keynes, Luton, Central Beds as well. It's just continued to go up. Now, the other thing as well, we've actually got in some places more jobs than working age population in Milton Keynes and Northampton, which does explain the traffic in the morning. But there's lots and lots of jobs there. Bottom line is we have high levels of employment. Now, is that to say you're going to walk straight into a job? The answer is no, definitely not. There's a lot of things you've got to do to actually get yourself ready for work, and a lot of things you've got to showcase. Interesting enough, though, on the job vacancy side, we have seen a decline for quite some time. I mean, the good news was it was at the beginning of 2020 showed a major U-turn and was increasing rapidly in the area. One of the things that came out of this was that the employers were actually saying to us they mainly advertise online and social media and word of mouth, and there was a lot of activity. And then obviously we got to March last year and what hit, and that kind of just slowed everything down. But I'm pleased to say now we are starting to see a sign of growth again after this particular lockdown, and businesses are starting to gear up. And we're actually running at about 73% of vacancies as they were before COVID-19. So, there's encouraging signs there. There's plenty to have a go at. Some sectors and some types of businesses have proved more resilient than others. And I'm pleased to say, certainly on the kind of engineering and manufacturing side, that is one of the groups that has actually started to show some really good signs throughout. Now, particularly on manufacturing. We've got a lot of food production in this area, and obviously we've all still needed to eat. So that's stayed fairly buoyant and fairly encouraging. The actual kind of manufacturing is so important to this particular area. It's the fifth biggest group of employers within the area. It covers about 9% of the workforce. So 76,000 people are actually employed in it. A wide variety of different kind of types of manufacturing in there. We've got everything Formula One through to food production, as I mentioned. Quite a broad spectrum of kind of that kind of businesses. If you actually look at the job vacancies, it does tend to peak and trough. It always has done with engineering and manufacturing, but the actual overall trend is up and continues to be so. And again, we're starting to see this slightly uplift of that tail at the end there. And there's a lot of reasons for this, a lot of factors. We've got increasing automation being used throughout lots of different sectors. Most of us will not have failed to notice that we have an awful lot of distribution in the area, the big warehouses, sheds as we call them. They've got a lot of automation within them, and that needs engineers to support and help them. So there's lots of opportunities in kind of areas like that. I've already mentioned food production and how important that is in the area. We're starting to see the impact of the green economy So looking at kind of different ways of producing energy, saving energy, distribution of energy, that kind of thing, and that needs help and support on the engineering side. One of the most exciting areas is we're starting to see companies that are working with the space sector starting to appear in this area. We are kind of bookended as an area where we've got Stevenage and we've got the guys across in Buckinghamshire where there's lots of space technology, and that's starting to filter across now into the middle bit. So this is to do with satellites, a lot of the tech there. I was speaking to a young lady the other day from the Open University who's actually working on a machine to actually drill rocks on the moon. So, you know, fascinating kind of stuff. Agri-tech is another particular area that's starting to show signs of development in the area. So this is agricultural technology. We already have fields and glass houses in the area where no human being touches them. Everything is automated. So they use drones for scanning kind of crops and that kind of thing. And then there's automated machines actually kind of doing the farming part. We are a hub of R&D. A lot of that is spun out of the Formula One teams that we actually have in the area, in the aerospace type businesses. But there's a lot of research and development, some exciting projects as well. So things like old railway tunnels being converted into testing centres for aerodynamics and things like that. And the one thing, and I'm a good representation of that, we do have an ageing workforce. A lot of businesses are looking for replacement. They're looking for replacing people who are retiring and moving on. And so there are going to be plenty of opportunities kind of going forwards within the kind of area and the sector. In terms of job vacancies, I mean, this is just a quick list that we downloaded earlier this week. This is the top 50 kind of job roles within manufacturing and engineering that appeared locally over the last 12 months. You can see there's a broad spectrum of jobs in there at lots of different levels, lots of mechanical, electrical, digital, lots of different elements within that. And so, you know, there's opportunity for all at lots of different levels as well. So anybody can kind of get into it. It's just taking those opportunities and pitching it right and finding the pathway that suits you. We do have lots of engineering and manufacturing companies as well, as I've already mentioned, and there are other kind of occupational groups and types of jobs that are associated with that. Certainly my own background on engineering was that I was a mechanical engineer, and then I moved into the sales and the marketing side on the technical sales. There's lots of opportunities there. There's things like financial, human resources and purchasing, procurement, but also digital. There'll be very few jobs these days where you're not going to touch digital in some way or other, and certainly software developers and programmers associated with engineering and manufacturing is becoming much more common. In terms of employability skills, we kind of have consulted employers over the last 14 months as we put together a new strategy, and the information that kind of comes back from them is the need for employability skills, and certainly in engineering and manufacturing they're defined in lots of different ways, but we've kind of grouped them together here. So we have what we call the core competencies. You might call them soft skills, you may have heard them called transferable skills. They're all the same, but these are the main ones that come up against those 50 job roles that I showed earlier on. So there's obvious things in there, problem solving being one of the main ones. You know, leadership, preventative maintenance, that kind of thing, being able to do research. English remains important. Being detailed orientated, actually paying attention to what you're doing, attention to detail, that kind of thing. But collaboration and teamwork and communication skills, always the top two, always the top two. And then there's the specialist skills. So there's things to do with kind of quality assurance, maybe CNC, maybe welding. Again, it depends on the role in particular that you're actually looking at. And then the digital skills, and I can probably safely say, certainly within this kind of area and sector, there'll be very few jobs that you do not use Microsoft Excel. So I would say to any young person, try and find your way around it, use it as much as you can, just learn to apply it because you're going to use it in life. It is quite handy as well. Microsoft Office as well. You'll see other things on that list as well, that AutoCAD, SolidWorks, you know, these are kind of computer design systems. SAP is a business system on there. So, you know, there'll be a combination of the skills. It's important to understand what skills are required when you start to look for a job. if you'd asked me 3 or 4 years ago what kind of resources were there to help you out there, to be honest with you, it's pretty light. You're very lucky actually coming into work at this stage because there's lots of them. There's some fantastic websites and portals that can give you some guidance and help and support you in which direction that you want to go in. You'll see on there the particular one, the Motor Industry Association. We are the centre of motorsport in the country, so that one in particular might be of interest. National Career Service one is pretty cool as well, if you want to go and have a look at that. We're going to record this session and we're actually going to share these slides as well. So they're going to appear on our websites at the Labour Market Information web page. So we'll make sure that they're available. Give us a bit of time, 2 to 3 weeks, they should be there for everybody. So thanks very much. Back to you, Carly.
That's great. Thanks so much, Paul. What a great presentation. I think the information about the future of space technology and agri-tech will be really interesting for our audience that are joining us this evening. And such a great top tip about learning Excel. I wish someone had told me that whilst I was in school. It's now time for our panel discussion. We have 8 fantastic speakers joining us today, and we'll be sharing their biographies in the Q&A thread as we pose them their first question. Our first set of questions aimed at finding out more about career pathways in engineering and manufacturing. And Marie, it'd be great if you could kickstart our discussion here. Welcome to the broadcast. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. It'd be really helpful if you could tell us a little bit about your job and I guess and how you made it into this role, what pathway you took and what that looked like.
Okay, sure. Good evening, everyone. So I am currently a human resource manager for Parker Hannifin, and we are an engineering and manufacturing company. Luckily, we're on the right broadcast today. So in terms of my career, I've sort of followed a number of links. I certainly didn't leave school and think I want to be a human resources manager. I probably wouldn't have known what that was, if I'm honest, when I was certainly 14, 15. I think my first experience of a human resource manager was when I was told off for being late in my student placement. And I've come to learn that actually HR isn't always about people getting told off. It's a much broader role these days. I started off, I grew up in hospitality. My mum and dad always ran restaurants, pubs, etc. So I sort of initially followed that link into a hospitality and business degree. And then from there went into catering for a little while, but then sort of took that link from catering into catering recruitment and worked in the sort of agency field for a number of times. And then sort of from there took that experience and worked across sort of recruitment and talent management and generalist sort of HR roles across initially financial services before coming into engineering and manufacturing. So there are some links there, I promise, but it's sort of taking one aspect of the role and sort of moving it into a new role. So yes, currently in the engineering space, and I've been here a number of years now and really enjoying that role.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marie. Brianna, we'd love to come to you next if that's okay. Similar question to Marie. It'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about the pathway into your current role, and then what it is that you most enjoy about your job.
Hi, my name's Brie. I work for Aston Martin F1 team. I'm the HR business partner. I've been here nearly 2 years now. I actually started out my working career, I suppose, at a local raceway called Santa Pod, just on the weekends, and that really sparked my love of motorsport and love of cars. I then moved into a digital marketing apprenticeship, so didn't start out in HR at all. Like Marie, didn't even consider it back in school, although I wish I did. And from my digital marketing apprenticeship, like Marie again, I had some experience of HR just from getting to know the various departments in the business, and it was something that I grew interested in. And then I obtained a very junior level role in HR and worked towards my CIPD qualification. So started out with my level 3 and then moved up to level 5 and then level 7, all part-time. So didn't go down the usual degree route, but it was the right route for me at the time. And I absolutely love the role I'm in. I started out in HR and engineering, electrical and mechanical engineers for conveyor belts. And now I'm in certainly a very different type of engineering, working with aeronautics, automotive. I mean, we produce the car here, we design it here, so we have quite a broad range of roles. And I think what I most love about my role, or I suppose the place that I work, is that we all share a common goal. We all want the team to succeed, we want to see us perform, we want to see us do well on the weekend. So personally and emotionally invested, sitting there on a Sunday watching our team, and that's probably the most favourite thing, if I can even call it a job.
That's so exciting, and it must be really rewarding to have, I guess, that one thing you're all invested in as well as the output of your really hard work. It
certainly is, except if there's a sort of accident at the weekend, we've sort of got a head in our hands and we know the work that's going to come in on the Monday morning.
It was a very good point. Thank you so much, Brianna. It's really great that both yourself and Marie were able to show that your studies can take you in many different directions, which I think is really exciting. And Alex, we'd love to come to you next if that's okay. It'd really be wonderful if you could talk to us a little bit about your pathway, I guess, and how you ended up in engineering in the role you're in now.
Thanks, Carly. Good evening, everyone. So I actually graduated with a physics degree. So at school, I never really know what I wanted to do, but everyone said, do maths, do physics, do the sciences, it keeps your options open. So I sort of ended up funneling down that pathway, got to kind of the university age, still didn't really know what I wanted to do. But physics, again, keeping your options open, having lots of different opportunities at the end. And then a kind of final year of university, I was like, right, this is the point where we make our mind up, we decide what career we'd like. So I kind of went through what do physicists do when they graduate? And, it's the teaching, it's the banking, and none of that really appealed to me. And sort of engineering was that next big sector that a lot of physicists and scientists go into. So I applied for a few different roles. Leonardo was actually my first job out of university. So Leonardo is in the aerospace and defence industry. I joined as a quality assurance engineer. Did a few placements around the business. I'm now working full-time in systems. Not sure if anyone's familiar with it, but there's a program called Tempest. So that's a new fighter jet program coming out. It's the replacement for the Typhoon. So that's a lot of my work at the moment. And I'm absolutely loving it. As a bit of an aside, I've actually ended up running the school's outreach program. So on our site and within all the sites at Leonardo, we try and engage with as many kind of local schools, do events like this as possible. At the moment, we've got about 40 schools on our books, so I'm, looking for new ambassadors and new apprentices to get involved in new things. So I've sort of ended up with quite a nice wide range of opportunities and roles within the company.
That's really amazing, and so great that you've been able to engage with schools as well and young people as part of your role. That must be quite invigorating.
It is a really nice feeling. Initially, I started off kind of going to the events myself, and then as opportunities opened up, I found that I just sort of ended up in the role. So it's really great for both personal development and for seeing, those nervous little, people coming into the business who, may not have had opportunities to lead and show off some skills, actually going out and engaging with potentially people at their own school to say, this is what I'm doing now and this is what you could be doing in future. So it's that really nice thing of not only do I get those development opportunities to show off that I can, lead a team and have all those development opportunities, I'm seeing other people develop as well. So it's a really nice balance.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and so great to be able to see that different side of your role as well. Thank you so much, and again, thank you for being with us this evening. We'd now like to move the kind of part of our discussion onto industry insights, so looking to demystify the engineering and manufacturing sectors for our audience. And Dominique, we'd love to come to you next if that's okay. It'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about your current role and the work that Unilever is involved in the kind of engineering and manufacturing space.
Yeah, of course. So hello, I'm currently in the Unilever Future Leaders programme. So it's actually the graduate scheme. So joined in September, so relatively new, but I'm in the sales division. So I'm currently a customer account manager looking after our home and personal care portfolio for Booker. So they're a wholesaler. And I think one of the best things about our job is over 2.5 billion people use our products every day globally. So lots of these products are found in everyone's homes. And I think the best thing at Unilever as well is just seeing the chain that you get through all of the roles. So I'm at the sort of end point in terms of the sales to the customer to sell to the consumer, but then you go right back through to getting those raw materials and making those products in the first place and all the innovation and design. And a big thing at Unilever has been our purpose, which is making sustainable living commonplace. So that's one of the driving factors through all of the different sections. So when you look at the engineering and the supply chain and research and development functions, which we're heavily involved in, it's all with that in mind, and it goes all the way through the chain line. So I think that's one of the biggest things, that everyone still has the same common purpose, even if you're working at the sort of start point to the end point as well.
That's really great and so wonderful to be so, I guess, connected to your colleagues with that common purpose as well. Really exciting. Thank you so much. And over to Jem, it'd be really helpful if you could talk us through your experience of doing a placement year.
Yes, definitely. Good evening, everyone. So I'm currently studying chemical engineering, and I'm on my placement year with Unilever. And as my placement scheme, I'm working under supply chain and engineering. So supply chain, as Dominic also mentioned, is the part that involves obtaining the raw materials and then making our products and making sure that they are available on the shops for our customers. And then engineering part of it is making sure that our processes are as efficient as possible, they are sustainable, cost effective, and most importantly that they don't harm the environment. And just to also mention a few things that I was involved with. As also mentioned, digital is kind of big these days, and we are relying lots on data. So one of the projects I was working on is actually under a digital factory project. So at Unilever, we are trying to digitize all our manufacturing processes. So essentially what the project aims is to make a digital copy of our production lines, so that instead of running really high cost experiments in real time, we can use those identical twins to carry out experiments and change variables and see the effect of those on the process, which I find really exciting. And I really recommend a placement scheme to anyone who considers, or any work experience to anyone who thinks of applying to those, because it really gives you lots of insight and kind of professional experience.
That's fantastic, thank you. I think you're absolutely right, that kind of experience of the world of work and of the workplace will be so helpful in preparing our audience for their future as well. What's the one thing that you're enjoying the most about your placement year?
I think the ability to be in a factory, because even with the COVID restrictions, I'm lucky enough to be able to work from site. And one of the things that I was really passionate about was being in a factory. As a kid, I was always watching, I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with those TV shows, but Food Factory and also How It's Made. So I was really into those TV shows. So now being able to be in a factory and see the production and bottles getting filled and being sand and all the machinery, and it's fascinating.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today. And we'll come back to you with more questions later, I'm certain. Austin, we'd love to come to you next if that's okay. Am I right in thinking that you took part in a graduate scheme?
Yes. So I'm on the graduate scheme that Dominic mentioned earlier, so the Unilever Future Leaders programme, but I'm on the research and development part of the scheme. So having done a science degree at university, that sort of teed me up into moving into the sort of R&D role. It's been brilliant, because so far I've worked in sort of 3 very different areas. So I've gone from working with the hair and looking at sort of human hair fibres to looking at ice creams, which has also been really tasty and fun. And now I'm working with deodorants. So I'm sort of going all over the place, but it's quite nice and exciting to work with brands that you sort of know and see on the shelf. So was getting to eat lots of Magnum ice cream, and now I'm working with sort of Lynx deodorant. So it's all sort of commonplace names, which is really, really fun.
That's amazing. And it was so great to have experience with 3 such different products as well, and being able to work on those. Our audience might not know too much about what a graduate scheme is, Austin. Would you be able to give them a bit of information about what that includes, and what does the application process look like as well, I guess?
Yeah, no problems. Yeah, graduate scheme, sort of as the name sort of implies, is for people once they finish university. So this is normally what you'd apply for in your final year of university, or if you're doing a master's, for example. And normally these are with large companies or smaller companies, and it's very much an sort of additional training program. So normally these companies offer some additional training as part of this, or a specialization with their programs. So for example, Unilever's scheme it's a 3-year scheme, and over that time you'll get to work in a number of different roles. So you'll get to try different opportunities throughout the company, rather than just starting in one job and working sort of in the area, which is very exciting. But we also have other roles such as HR, where they offer you the formal qualifications, but you have to go through the university process first. And normally there are other additional benefits, sort of just with like a job at the end of them, for example. So you do your 3 years, get lots of work experience, and then normally there is a sort of role waiting for you at the end. So it's additional training and work experience all sort of combined into one, which is really exciting.
That sounds really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing some insights into those schemes with us today. Again, we'll come back to you with more questions later, Austin, I'm certain. Vicky, we'd love to ask you your first question, if that's all right, and have you join us. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Am I right in thinking that your interest in engineering started when you were quite young, I guess, as a teenager or even younger, Vicky?
Yeah, so I unlike the others, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when well, before I got anywhere near school. My dad had his own business designing gearboxes for motorbikes. So I spent my weekends in race paddocks and holidays, gear cutting. So I was very clear about what I wanted to do. I wanted to get involved with engineering, and I also am obsessed with the motorsport. So I love following the F1 and Aston Martin, and from that really kind of set my path. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go away and do a degree about it. I wasn't probably as good at the physics as your other guest here, but I was a real problem solver. So that was my skill set. You give me a problem and I will go after it until I'd completely finished it. And so that really sort of set me on my path. So I did an apprenticeship for 4 years. With a company in Cummins, so I definitely knew I wanted to leave home and go and experience a different world. So I moved over to Daventry, and I did my apprenticeship there. And then I ended up, after going kind of across all departments, so I went through sales, build, HR, across all of the divisions, and really got my eyes open to all of what business is, and I really honed in on the kind of new product introduction, which was within engineering, and that really made me think, gosh, actually I do want to do my degree now. So I then went on and did my degree part-time, being sponsored by Cummins, which was a great route for me, because while all my friends weren't getting paid and they were spending lots of money, I managed to get paid for studying. Which was a great route, but it also meant that I got that kind of experience as I learned. So that meant that from there on, I was kind of then trying to sort of navigate my way through the different departments until I finally ended up in motorsport, which is kind of where I wanted to be, kind of navigating through automotive, a bit of aerospace. So that really gave me a breadth of experience to sort of land me where I am today in operations. So yeah, it's been great.
That's amazing. I so rarely get the chance to speak to speakers who say they knew exactly what they wanted to do. So that's really wonderful. And I'm certain we'll have more questions for you when we think about life lessons and skills as well, Vicky. So later on in the session, we'll be looking at what skills helped you in your kind of career, when you knew exactly what you wanted to do, what helped you get to where you are now. And we'll pick up on those later, if that's okay.
Sure.
Fantastic, thank you. Alex, we'd love to come to you next, if that's okay. From all of our speakers today, and from Paul's presentation as well, we've been able to see that the industry is growing so quickly and changing and developing, and I'm interested in what your thoughts are on how the future of the engineering and manufacturing sectors might look in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, and what students might expect to see from that.
Thanks, Kelly. As Paul's already mentioned, we've got that massive problem of the ageing workforce. So every year we're recruiting lots of graduates and lots of apprentices to try and fill all those gaps and have all that knowledge transfer, so that when people actually finally do retire, that we don't end up with, you know, that cliff edge of knowledge. So it's a really great time to join the engineering industry, and in particular the defence industry. On top of that, there's a lot of new exciting programs coming in, like Tempest. So you get that kind of long-term. At the moment, we're at the point where we're developing all these new technologies and looking at what can we do in 30 years' time. So we're really kind of looking at the future, which is incredibly exciting. I've gone to things like air shows where there's an entire nation of, well, not a nation, but across the country, everyone's working on this program. There's people from across the sector, all the age ranges. There's so much knowledge out there, and there's so much support for developing and getting all those new skills. So I think it's a tremendously exciting opportunity, and I'm really glad I made the decision to work for it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And we're going to kind of quickly move back to you, Dominique, if that's okay. One of the things I think is really interesting for our audience to think about are some of those job titles or roles that they just might not realise exist within an organisation like Unilever. So perhaps you could talk us through, are there any jobs that exist within the business that you didn't expect or you've come across that you didn't realise existed?
Yeah, I think one of the Unilever things is there's lots of acronyms as well. So I remember first joining and you hear people's job titles and you're sort of wondering what that stands for. But there's all sorts that vary right from the beginning all the way through to the end stage. So one of the things I do in sales, I work really closely with supply chain a lot. So you have a lot of people who are working as a requirements planner. So they're looking at the forecasting for long term. So all of the volume that you might have on all the different products. And similar with demand planner, looking at sort of short-term space. So very much when you get a customer coming to you going, can we have 10,000 cases of deodorants by next week? They'll be checking that in all the systems. And you have roles such as a customer replenishment specialist. So they'll be working with the external contacts and working with them in forecasting. So I think it's just so totally varied. And I think as well, a lot of the focus, we've got roles specifically on sustainability as well. So there'll be a lot of focus on some of the sustainability engineering and R&D innovation. So lots of different roles that I think you don't necessarily think of when you first think of that manufacturing and engineering title.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Paul, I know you gave us a fantastic presentation earlier, but we very rarely get to involve you in our panel discussion, so I'd love to come to you with our next question, if that's okay. It'd be really helpful if you could talk us through, I guess, your engineering experience and how that has helped you in your overall career and doing what you're doing now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I came to it through careers advice from a teacher, actually, I have to say. I was the quiet one at the back, a little bit naughty and mischievous. That might come as a surprise to some of you who know me, but I was very good at maths and physics and technical drawing and things like that. And they said, well, look at engineering, please look at engineering. And in my days, we didn't have computers. You had books and things and bits and pieces, and it made perfect sense. And I joined a company, a technical support. Worked my way through sales, into product marketing, product development, global product marketing. Then as it became part of a large group, which was Atlas Copco, big Swedish company. And then I ended up being the CEO, the general manager of the UK and the Irish part of the organisation. I have worked with most of the companies that are actually here on the panel in some shape or form. So Parker definitely worked in because of the pneumatics inside and bits and pieces. Formula One teams we worked in, we used to do the starter motors and things and bits and pieces for them. Leonardo's, not quite Leonardo's, but British Aerospace, Airbus, all these kind of organisations we worked with the contracts and bits and pieces. And certainly Unilever on the assembly lines and things like that, and the kind of production lines we did a whole ton of work with. So, it's interesting. And we actually, funny enough, we used to run our own race cars at one point as well. And we used to have a car at Santapod. So there you go, full set. Yeah, I mean, the skill sets certainly I take forwards. I came into this role kind of indirectly through first of all, kind of helping and supporting in schools with an organisation called Young Enterprise. I used to run my own business, so I knew about running a business, got involved with Young Enterprise as a charity, got asked to join the organisation, ended up in this role for SEMLEF. It's a long story. The skill sets, though, are really that I use problem solving all the time. Communication skills, I'd like to think I'm reasonably good at communication these days. I hope so. You know, collaboration is one of the biggest things that we actually do, and kind of working with other people outside of your organisation to actually make things happen and make things work, like tonight. You know, teamwork, that kind of thing. They've all become more. And then on the side of that, what we call digital literacy has become more and more and more important. The data analysis I now do, supporting the work that we do here, is immense. So just those little slides that I showed earlier on, there's a ton of data behind that that we've actually had to put together. So it's that kind of thing, I think, Carly and Manny.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. Brianna, we'd love to come to you next if that's okay. As you will have seen throughout this discussion, we're really keen to look to demystify the engineering manufacturing sectors for young people. And it'd be really helpful if you could talk us through any preconceptions you had about your industry before you joined and how they might have changed whilst you've been in your role.
Absolutely. So I think one of the preconceptions held about motorsport is certainly that it's a man's world. I didn't even consider working in HR for motorsport. I didn't consider that I would ever be able to make it into this industry, because although everyone needs HR, it's not something that would have crossed my mind. So very quickly working here and meeting all the staff that we've got and all the departments that we have, it's really not at all that way. We're incredibly diverse in terms of gender and nationalities, and we recruit from absolutely all over the world. We make such an active effort to try and engage young people into motorsport, and I know it's a particular issue, I suppose, in terms of STEM, and that's something we're very keen to work on and contribute on as well, because that's our future talent pools that we want to influence, and we want to show that we're certainly not a man's world. There is so much to our business that you might not even consider, and departments that we've got and roles that we hold, and it's really a brilliant place to work. I think any F1 team or any career in motorsport or engineering, I would really sort of advise that you reconsider any preconceptions that you have about any industry before you go into there. But by all means, ask for a tour, talk about the demographic, you know, ask those questions, because we're certainly not closed doors. You know, if that's one of your concerns, by all means take a walk around our office, meet our staff and ask them directly. I may be biased because I'm in HR, but if you come and see for yourselves, that speaks for itself.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're now going to move on to finding out about some of the skills that each of you have perhaps needed throughout your career, and some of the skills that our young people might want to consider developing now in kind of in anticipation of their future careers. So Jem, it'd be great if we could come to you first. A bit of a difficult question perhaps, but I guess what are the 3 most important skills that you're developing right now that you think are going to really help you in the rest of your career?
Okay. So first of all, I would say creativity, because creativity is a big part of problem solving, which is essential to engineering. So first, I would say creativity. Second, it can be around like digital and data analysis and those kind of skills. There is Power BI and Python and all sorts of new data analysis softwares and visualization tools, so all those. And then lastly, I would say communication, because it's an especially tricky skill for me as well, because English is my second language, and trying to be like professional and develop all those again, professional communication skills is really important.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And Marie, as a kind of resourcing talent and HR professional, it'd be really helpful if you could talk us through some of the attributes and skills that employers are looking for. Is creativity, digital and data analysis, communication? I think Paul spoke around collaboration as well. Are those the things that you're looking for? Is there anything else that our audience should be aware of?
Sure, absolutely. I'd agree with all of those. And I think what I love about the engineering industry is that, you know, that creativity and innovation and making a difference in the world is absolutely balanced with the quality and safety and those, you know, considerations. And that's always quite interesting. You need those, absolutely, the soft skills, but, you know, balanced with the hard skills. I think what I'd add to what's been said, and I think we've all had a tough year, haven't we? but there'll be no year ever gives us adaptability and resilience like this year has done. And as an employer, that's absolutely what we look for. We need people to be able to change. You know, sometimes you might have been working on a project for 9 months and all of a sudden the funding's gone, or the customers change their requirements, and you have to start again on Monday morning. And actually, do you know what? We're not doing that anymore. And we now need you to work in this area or on this project, and to be able to sort of go with that and you know, change at the last minute. So I think whether you wanted to develop those skills or not, I think we all have this year. I think we've all learned to do things very differently, and while some of us have struggled, no doubt, I would just embrace what this year has given us, and harness that resilience and that, you know, that ability to change, because it will just put you in such good stead going forward. Absolutely,
thank you so much. I love the fact that you focus on resilience there as well, something that can get so easily forgotten about, but it's so crucial to a lot of us in our careers actually, and in bouncing back from things that might not quite go as we expect. And absolutely, thank you so much. And on that note, Austin, it'd be great if we could come to you and think about some of the key skills, attributes or characteristics that have helped you in your career. Is resilience one of those? Are there others that you've found that have really, I guess, benefited you?
Yeah, I think resilience and agility sort of are really good call outs from Marie. I think, like Marie sort of called out, the last year has been sort of unprecedented. I obviously started in September 2019, so I was very lucky to get to work in the office for about 6 months, and then very quickly overnight had to switch to working from home, and I've now moved roles several times. So the current team I'm now working in, I've never met in person, and most likely never will meet in person. So just sort of having that adaptability, and being flexible to different ways of working. I now work with a global team, so now I'm working with people from across the globe, different time zones, language barriers. So it's definitely just being sort of able to sort of bounce with whatever's thrown at you, because I think there's always surprises that come your way. And I think Jem also called out communication, which is also very important. Everyone has different ways of working, everyone has preferences, and it's just making sure that you're sort of being considerate to other people and sort of just communicating professionally and also effectively.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And Brianna, we'd love to come to you next. I think all of these amazing skills and attributes that all of our speakers have outlined today are really helpful for young people in thinking about their future careers and what it is that they might want to consider developing now. And of course, work experience can be a great way for them to experience the workplace and start developing some of these, I think, unnecessarily called softer skills that are actually really crucial to our careers. So do you know of any work experience opportunities that are available to students? Is it something you would recommend to them and encourage them to get involved in?
Yeah, so work experience is incredibly valuable. We definitely love to see on a CV, whether it's you're having a degree, you know, you're doing a placement year somewhere. I think that's absolutely brilliant, especially as we look at graduate and junior roles. I think it's so useful. Just having those transferable skills that you've learned from being in a workplace for a year, let alone all the other skills that you pick up along the way. But in terms of sort of younger students and work experience, I think it's incredibly difficult to land placements. We certainly don't offer work experience at the moment more widely, just because we are absolutely inundated anyway with these requests, and it's just finding a way to accommodate them. You know, do we accommodate students just from the local area, or do we try and, you know, reach out more widely, which we'd love to do if we had the capacity. So it is incredibly difficult, and we absolutely appreciate that. But I'd advise just showing any passion. I think, you know, whether it's picking up a couple of hours somewhere on a weekend, it doesn't have to be a week-long placement, but just picking up where you can, any kind of experience, you know, working with your parents or guardians, working with any other friends and family members that will have you for a day or an afternoon, and just picking up those skills and making sure you're sort of explaining how they're transferable and what you learn from that is really invaluable. It's quite difficult to say how much we value it and then don't offer it. But it's something that is really key, I think, for a CV. If you are able to pick something up, you know, if you can't get into a Formula One team, have a look at F2 or some other motorsport related organisations that could help you.
That's great, thank you, and some great top tips there as well. And Marie, I guess just thinking about those entry-level applications that you might see, or even emails you might receive from young people looking for work experience, what makes something stand out to you where you think this is someone I want to help or give a kind of work experience to?
Sure, it's that effort. I think it's the effort that goes in to the approach, that maybe, you know, you've had a chance to think about the organisations that you'd like to work with, rather than it being just a blanket email that you've probably, you know, sir, madam, that have gone out to 100 different organisations. But you've had the chance to think about, you know, and it's always that two-way. It's like, you know, what could you bring to me and what can I give to you in terms of experience, and sort of weighing those two aspects up. And just really, you know, showcasing every aspect of your experience. Because, you know, if we take a 16-year-old's, an 18-year-old's CV, you know, they may have done a similar bunch of qualifications, whether that be GCSE, A levels, something different, and it's how do you distinguish yourself between you and 100 other people. So, you know, if you've been on you know, scout camps, if you've done volunteering, all of that is really relevant. And as Bree said there, you know, we're not getting work experience right now is challenging, but any experience is good experience. So if that's working at McDonald's, if it's packing fish in factories, it shows that you can work with people and you can turn up on time and that you can collaborate and work and put in a good day's, you know, hard day's work. So, you know, don't discount any of your experience because it's not, you know, exactly relevant. If you want to be an engineer, then, oh, I haven't done my placement in mechanical engineering, but I did do my placement, you know, working in a pub, and I had some really difficult customers and I had to deal with those customers and problem solve. It's all really relevant. So any experience is great experience in my book, and just get that across in your applications and your emails, and make it individual to you.
That's great. Thank you so much for great advice for our audience. And for the last kind of 10 minutes or so, we'd really love to reflect on our speakers and panelists' life lessons and the things that you've learned throughout your career, perhaps things you wish you'd known when you started your career journey. So Vicky, it'd be really helpful if you could talk us through, what do you wish you had known at the very start of your career in engineering?
I think probably how important relationship building is. So you know, you build relationships with your family and your friends, and you don't really appreciate that actually building a relationship with some guy that you need some information with, that you've just been told to go and talk to, and you kind of ask them a question and then walk off. It's actually the biggest life lesson I think I try to impress here on our apprenticeships and grads, is that actually everyone, if you build a relationship with somebody, as soon as you go to talk to them next time, they will be willing to help you, willing to share their experiences. And effectively, you know, I've got people that I still talk to from when I first started out as an 18-year-old doing my apprenticeship, who have helped me with guidance throughout my career. So, you know, and I've got people that I now have as mentors who help mentor me, and I mentor other people. So I think you don't appreciate that the communication path is absolutely the most important thing, so that you can understand what someone needs from you, what you want from them, but also that building relationships and being able to communicate and be confident and talk and ask questions and be inquisitive. And especially when you're young, you can get away with it. You know, you can ask all the really silly, dumb questions because there's no judgment. So you know, I think for me personally, that has stood me in really good stead, because I'm not afraid to ask a silly question even now, and I can play the old card now, so that's great. But you know, being confident and willing to sit and listen to those people. I think one thing as an apprentice versus a grad is that I learnt from the people doing the trade, so from the engine builder, from the fabricator. So, you know, engineering sometimes is always approached as a very technical, degree orientated, but also there's a hands-on element to engineering. You know, the fabricators, the machine shop, the painters, the electrical harnesses, and you don't necessarily need you know, a degree to be able to do that, and you can learn those skills on the job. So I try to consider engineering as two things, but as long as you're always talking and listening and learning, that will stand you in really good stead. And I probably didn't appreciate that as a maybe slightly cocky 18-year-old when I was starting out.
That's great, thank you so much. And Dominique, we'd love to come to you, and particularly focusing on your experience of moving from studying to working and that transition. Was there anything in particular that you learned during that time, or anything that even surprised you?
Yeah, it is a big change, and I think from what everyone, particularly Maria, was saying about doing lots of different work experience, I think my main role from going from studying at uni and going into a job, I'd done all sorts of different jobs. So I'd been a waitress for a wedding caterer, and that sort of work experience. So I think it does hit you when you come into that professional environment. Things are very different, and the way you sort of conduct yourself in different roles, I think that's one of the big key things to remember as well. And I think it's just that trying to take on board and learn as much as you can, and not pretending that you know it all, because you're not going to, and asking all those questions and not being afraid to ask those questions which you think might be silly. I think what everyone always says is ask as many questions as you want, but make sure you take on board the answer to that question so you don't ask it loads of times. I think that's the biggest thing, is sort of learn and pick everything up, and take things as they come, and yeah, don't be scared to ask things.
That's some great advice, and I love that's one of the key threads of this conversation, is to be inquisitive and to ask questions and put yourself out there, which I think is some really great advice for our audience today. And finally, as we draw the session to a close, we have a final question for each of you to answer, and that is going to focus on the one piece of advice you would like to leave our students with. And Marie, we'd love to come to you first, if that's okay.
Okay, so I would say, as you're stepping out there and starting to look for work and opportunities, just think about the breadth of what an organisation can give you. It's very easy to think, right, I don't want to work for this company because they only do engineering. I don't want to work for that company because I don't want to be in retail, for example. But actually, the wealth of roles that are in any big organisation, or indeed small. I think, Paul, you put up a slide with a few different function areas, but all of these big companies have an IT department and a digital area, and a human resources department, and a marketing department, and supply chain, as you demonstrate there, Jem. It's a huge industry, and I think that was the top employer of our area. I'd never heard of supply chain, probably even 6 or 7 years ago. Yes, procurement and buying, but actually supply chain is huge, and investigate all, because it doesn't actually mean you're going to be necessarily in an operational role. There's lots of, just within that one function, a whole host of different roles. So really look and peel up the layers of those organisations, and turn the stone over and look at all the different roles that are available, because I think you'll be surprised every time. So just look beyond the company name and what you think they do. I think that would be my main piece of advice.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marie. And Alex, we'd love to come to you next, if that's okay. Is there a piece of advice or a final top tip you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think there's a lot to be said for stepping out of your comfort zone. So it's really easy to get into that mindset of, actually, I haven't done that before, or I've got most of those skills, but not all of those skills, or actually, I'm sure this person would be better for that role potentially. And it's really, really easy to get into that mindset and stick in your comfort zone and keep ticking over. But the way you kind of grow and progress is taking on those new roles, stepping out of your comfort zone, whether that's, taking on a senior management position, later on in your careers, or, running the under 11s or the under 14s football team earlier on. But just taking on all those risks, because you have so many opportunities right now, and there's so many you'll miss out on if you don't, take those risks and look into all those different opportunities.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dominique. We'd love to come to you next, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So I think my big one would be not to give up, and sort of maintain that sort of resilience and drive to get to where you want to get to. I think it can be quite disheartening at times where, some places are really competitive, and it can be sort of tough to sort of find where exactly you want to be. But a lot of things happen for a reason, and don't give up in terms of finding what you want to do, and sort of applying to the places that you want to get to.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Brianna, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, for me it'd be it's okay to change your mind. So I started my career in marketing. I thought I'd continue that as a long-term career, but changed my mind and got into HR. but it was quite scary to choose one thing and think that's it for life. So it's absolutely fine to change your mind, keep your options open. You know, like it's been said, the company that you go into, you might stay with, but you might end up in a completely different place and you might absolutely love it. So please do not panic when choosing a career, because it might lead to something amazing.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Austin, we'd love to come to you for your final piece of advice or top tip.
Yes, I think my advice would be that the world of work is moving fast. I think you need to be willing to move with it. I think just because you've left school, you've left university, learning should never stop. You should always be looking to sort of develop yourself and upskill yourself. And if you choose to sort of sit and stay in your comfort zone, that's a decision you need to make. I think it's always just pushing yourself. I think what other people sort of said is, yeah, stepping out of your comfort zone, being willing to develop and having that drive to sort of keep moving with the world. Don't let the world move without you.
Fantastic, I love that saying. Thank you so much. And Paul, any final thoughts from you at all?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm going to do two because it's my game. So, I mean, the one I would say is I have never yet met any young person who does not have a core competence or skill or soft skill or transferable skill. I've never met a young person yet who hasn't got any of those. I have met an awful lot that can't evidence it. And that's the bit to do, is to make these associations between these skills and what you've done. So reference has been made earlier on, you know, if you've been waitressing or if you've been doing other jobs, etc., bits and pieces, that's fine. Just pick up on the communication skill bit, you know, all that kind of thing, and tie those two together. And the other thing I would say, just from an engineering point of view, for the viewers that are out there at the moment, look in the room around you at the moment. Everything in that room has been engineered. You want to make a difference to somebody's life, somewhere, be an engineer. We desperately need you, please.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And Jem, anything that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, so I would say be curious, and as all other panelists mentioned, be open to opportunities. I remember during last year of my high school, I was really worried about like making the right decision, choosing the right course, but I realize now it's not about that, because once you like finish your degree and start your professional career, there are lots of different paths. Even if you study chemical engineering, let's say, for my situation, if I don't enjoy chemical engineering, I can go into finance, I can go into different sectors. So I would, yeah, say be open to different opportunities and be curious about yourself and your interests. And I think, yeah, everything will be fine.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And Vicky, you have the final word for our broadcast this evening. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, I think for me, engineering has been something that I love, and I can honestly say that I enjoy getting up and coming to work every day. I've never not wanted to come to work. Some days there's something evil waiting for me, and I know it's going to happen, but effectively it's another hurdle to get over, another problem to solve. And you know, I've been really lucky to work on the world's fastest production race car, a camel jockey, for a robot that whips a camel for racing in Saudi Arabia, to working on an exhaust system that drives around on a Discovery 3 today, and a Jaguar. So I've had the opportunity to work on things that, as Paul said, people sit in and drive a car, and I can say I worked on that. So there's a real sense of pride. I would think of something that you love and you enjoy, and there's definitely going to be an engineering element somewhere out there that that allows you to engage with that. And engineering is just so diverse. It's not just about technical. So just think outside the box and go for it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And a huge thank you to all of our panelists and speakers for making the time to be with us today, and to our fantastic audience for tuning in, of course. We have now reached the end of the session, and there is a short feedback form in the Q&A thread for our audience to complete if you wouldn't mind. And we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for a session on digital careers. Have a great evening, everyone.